Hello class, and in today's lecture we're going to talk about the performance appraisal process. Let's get started. It's important to note that there are multiple unit entities that are involved in the performance appraisal process. One is the HR department, the other is the hiring manager, or what's commonly known as the first line manager. The HR department, what they do is they help to design the overall system. They help to train the hiring managers who actually conduct the performance appraisals. They also track, report, and document and keep the overall records for what's going on with performance appraisals and how employees are rated. The managers, on the other hand, they actually perform the actual appraisal, identify developmental areas for employees, ways to be able to help them to increase their performance. They also help employees set goals and and design their future career ambitions within the organization. Performance appraisals are important for a number of reasons. One, they help to increase the overall occupational or operational competence of the organization. They keep the company within legal compliance. If there's ever like a lawsuit claiming discrimination or something like that, performance appraisals are one of the first items that people go to determine whether an employee was treated unfairly or not. They can help with corporate growth by making sure that employees are performing their tasks and doing it successfully, that they have the right skills, that they want to continue to grow in the same direction that an organization is growing in. And they can help provide answers to a wide array of work-related questions on how to actually improve job performance. A tremendous amount of information comes out of a job appraisal in terms of what new resources an employee may need to do their job better, what are some of the designs of the way a job may be structured or interactions with coworkers, and how they can be restructured to allow for greater efficiency and productivity. Performance management versus the performance appraisal. Now, it's important to note that these two things are actually different. So performance management, that's the process that's used to identify, encourage, measure, and evaluate employees so you can give them rewards based on their performance. This is the overall process. So this is where HR typically resides at in their work and their activity. So many companies are moving now to use online electronic databases or systems, what we call human resource management systems, to keep track of employee information and data. What are the actual questions or areas that will be evaluated? What type of evaluation mechanism we're going to use? Are we going to do a 360 evaluation or just have the manager do the evaluation? All those components and those questions are answered by the performance management process, and that's an HR side of the things. The performance appraisal itself, now this is the actual process of evaluating how the employee did on his or her job specifically, and this is what's actually done by the hiring manager or the first line manager. They're the same thing. When we say hiring manager or first line manager, they're the exact same person. But this is the actual evaluation that is given to the employee. It's important to note that the performance appraisal process, much like every other process in organizations, is circular and it builds upon itself. So one, it starts off by understanding, what are the corporate strategy, what are the goals that the organization is trying to accomplish. And that is oftentimes used to write or develop what a person should be doing in their job for that year. We call that management by objectives. As the objectives flow down from the CEO, it trickles down to all the management levels below. And eventually, the performance appraisals for each employee is a version of the objectives of his or her manager. So you design the performance appraisal that sets the expectations of what should be done. And that provides direction for what kind of actions a person should be doing throughout the year. Employees are encouraged to participate. So a lot of times there may be a major strategic shift in the organization that year, which requires them to go a different way, which makes the previous goals obsolete. So employees need to bring this to the attention of their managers and have that brought up so that the performance expectations can be adjusted accordingly. Next, then the hiring manager or the first line manager does the evaluation. They actually assess how well the person done their job. They give the person the performance appraisal along with any recommendations for improvement, and then the process starts all over again. So it's a continual process that builds off of itself. When it comes to understanding effective performance management and those systems and how they should work, there's a couple of points that you should be aware of. One, it is key that managers make make expectations of the organization extremely clear. And as I mentioned before, management by objectives is arguably the most popular system that's used in corporations today to make sure that there are clear and concise expectations laid out for employees and what they should or shouldn't be doing, particularly as it pertains to their performance appraisal. Two, provide performance information to employees. So we could do a performance evaluation, but if we don't provide feedback to the employee, it's of little use or of little good. So having a formal process where this information is shared with employees in a constructive manner so they can continue to improve themselves is important. Next, you need to document this information so that it's there for future use. As employees move throughout the company, transfer to different jobs, get promoted, or what have you, oftentimes the manager of the new manager will evaluate the performance appraisals and HR information of the employee before making a decision to hire. And lastly, identify areas of success and areas where development or additional work needs to be put forth. This is key because in organizations it's all about continuing to be successful, continuing to do better, to build upon successes and to reduce your weaknesses as much as possible. Performance appraisals are a terrific way to be able to accomplish this goal. When actually conducting a performance appraisal, in the previous slide, the lecture, in this module, we talked about results-oriented criterion that managers use to evaluate employees as opposed to trait or behavioral based. Here are some criterion that are arguably very results-oriented, but that managers can use to evaluate employees on. One is the quantity of the output that they do. How much did you make? It depends on the nature of the job, but that may be relevant. Timeliness of output, efficiency of work completed, effectiveness of the work completed, presence or attendance on the job. Were you absent a lot? Were you late to meetings a lot? Quality of the output of the work. So not only quantity, but also quality of the work. These are all criteria that can be used in a performance appraisal to evaluate how good a person is doing his or her job. This is a slide I mentioned earlier. I do cover this in the other lecture for this module, but organizations are finding that results-based information right here is far more useful when evaluating employees. It's far less controversial and less subjective than, say, traits-based information or behavioral-based information. If you take a look at this slide, you can see the difference. For example, under results-based, we have sales volume. We can clearly measure and evaluate what a sales volume is, whether it's increased or decreased, and reward an employee accordingly. Same with cost reduction. If we're supposed to reduce the cost on a certain item or a certain marketing campaign, we could look at that and we could measure very objectively what that number may be. Let's jump over here to trait-based information. If I were to evaluate employees off of their attitude or off of his or her teamwork support or initiative, now we get into a very gray area because, well, what I may define as excellent teamwork may not be the same as that employee. And you have this level of subjectiveness in it, which can lead to disagreements in terms of what a person's actual evaluation should or shouldn't be. I believe I should be ranked number 5, where the manager believes you should be ranked number 3. And there is a legitimate area of dispute there that makes it difficult for objective evaluation. So you'll see that in general, organizations and managers are leaning more towards results-based information because they find it more useful and it's more defensible, particularly if there's ever a lawsuit or some claim of discrimination. When a performance appraisal is completed, you'll find that there's either administrative actions that are conducted or developmental actions. Oftentimes you'll get some of both. Administrative actions are typically taken care of by HR. The hiring manager is of course involved, or the first line manager is involved, but this is primarily an HR function. So dismissal from work, disciplinary procedures, adjusting a person's compensation, whether up or down. Very rarely is compensation moved down. It's pretty much unheard of. Promotions, demotions, etc., the likes. Developmental actions, this is definitely where your manager comes into play, but career progression. Are you on track to achieve your career goals? Do you need additional training, coaching, mentoring, identifying the strengths and weaknesses of your employees and developing ways to help them improve? Now, I won't read through all of these, bullets here, but this slide we talk about some of the legal concerns that are associated with performance appraisals. This is arguably one of the most controversial areas in HR that first line managers have to do. And you need to make sure it's done objectively and fair across all employees. So appraisal criteria should be based on the job. It should be objective. There should be formal evaluation criteria so that it limits or reduces the subjectiveness that a manager may bring in with his or her bias. You should document the information so that it's always available. Trained supervisors and managers should be trained on how to properly conduct appraisals, things they should or shouldn't do. We have a slide coming up shortly that will tell you things that you should or shouldn't do when you're actually giving a performance appraisal. Now this slide is very interesting, and for the sake of time, we're not going to be able to jump on or discuss in detail all of these bullets, but what I do want to point out is, where do managers go to get information that they use in their performance evaluation? And the answer is you can go to a number of different places. You'll see here what's called a multi-source feedback or 360-degree review. In this concept, what we're talking about is a manager who seeks information from a variety of sources, and all that gets added into the actual performance appraisal for the employee. So for example, you may go talk to the employee's coworkers. You may talk to the people that report to the employee. You may talk to customers. You may talk to the manager, obviously is involved in evaluation. And most importantly, you may ask the employee to evaluate him or herself. You'll take information from all these different sources and combine that to form one overall appraisal. We call that a 360-degree review. And if you look at these other bullets, you'll see they all kind of identify areas where, or places, people where you can get information from to help you with the evaluation of an employee. This slide, once again, ties into the idea of the 360-degree appraisal. So you'll see that the manager offers his or her opinion. You may talk to customers to get information about their performance. You'll talk to the employee, him or herself. You may talk to any subordinates that report to the employee, and also any coworkers or peers of the employee. And all that feeds into the appraisal that's being given. Now, if you are a manager and you're going to give a performance appraisal, there are some things that you should absolutely do and some things you should absolutely not do. One, you should be prepared for your meeting. You should be focused on objective performance. Try to keep your personal opinions to yourself, and you should give them a development plan for how they can improve themselves. And also, you'll be careful of how you speak. Most people tend to retain or remember the negative things that individuals say. So if you're going into performance appraisal, people are already high with anxiety in general cases because they're being evaluated. So they're going to be more prone to listen to and take any negative feedback more to the heart, more stronger, and forget all the positive things that may have been said. So it's important that you recognize that so you can guide how you communicate information. So here's some things that you don't do. You don't talk too much. Let the employee speak. Let them say what they want to say. Just because they may disagree with the performance appraisal doesn't mean that the appraisal is going to actually change, okay? But you want to give them voice to express their concerns or areas that they may disagree. Don't berate or lecture the employee. Don't compare the employee to other coworkers. Don't think that the employee has to agree to you, right? And definitely do not focus strictly on the negative things or areas where the employee can improve. Focus on the good things, arguably more than the negative things, because once again, people tend to remember and hold on to the negative things far tighter than they do the good things. So when it comes to employee rating of managers, there's some good things, some bad things. Some of the advantages are it helps to identify competent managers. It serves to make managers more responsive to employees, and it can contribute to the career growth or development of these managers. So I want you to go back to the idea of that 360-degree review, and there's an employee, he or she has some subordinates, and you're asking the subordinates to evaluate their manager. These are some of the advantages and disadvantages associated with that particular behavior. Some of the disadvantages are that negative reactions to manager ratings. The manager could not like his ratings and then turn that on the employees. So the subordinates could fear reprisal. And then ratings are useful only for self-improvement purposes. So, hopefully the manager will look at that and decide, hey, here's where I could improve my performance or be a better manager. That wraps it up for this lecture. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, worries, or compliments, please feel free to email me. Thank you very much and have a good day.